Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line with
Anna Letitia Cook.
Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line. Today's guest is Hannah Stainer. She's a wellbeing coach, youth coach, qualified teacher and speaker. She's the creator and host of the Psykhe Mental Wellbeing podcast and a member of the British Psychology Society. So welcome to the show, Hannah.
Hi, Anna. Lovely to be here and to see you again.
I know. It's another thing nobody knows. Hannah and I trained together as yoga teachers, which is brilliant and the best exercise you can imagine. And it was really good fun training with Hannah. So it's a double welcome.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about looking after our mental well-being, avoiding stress and avoiding stress and overwhelm, and burning out. So to start with, for me, it seems that people are struggling more and more these days with mental well-being in and out of the workplace. It's not just workplace. It seems to be outside as well. And the issues seem to include stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout. Now, I don't know whether that's changed from when I'm young, which is a very long time ago, or whether it's just that people are more open about it. But can you start by giving us a brief overview of what these different things are? Because I think people get confused whether they've got stress or anxiety and what overwhelm and burnout really is. So what are they and how can they affect us?
Yeah, awesome. And this is sort of my view, and so other people might have a slightly different take on these. And so stress is something we will all have felt at some point. It's that classic fight-flight response where the adrenaline's going and we're ready to respond to something, which in itself isn't bad. It's a natural process. But when we are in this prolonged kind of chronic stress where our body is not having that chance to calm down, and you're just sort of on edge all the time, I'm not going to go into all the health issues that can come from that, but it has a massive impact. We really need to have that chance to kind of come down into that sort of rest, digest stage. So that's that sort of response when you're really like, I'm sort of doing my hand gestures, that feeling. Anxiety is, if you think about it, kind of like chronic worry, which is a bit of a simplification, but we all have things that worry us that we're concerned about. But with anxiety, it can become overwhelming. We're having those thoughts about, what could go wrong, what we're worried about, what people might think of us, those kind of things, to the point that they're affecting our ability to do the things in our life that we enjoy doing, that we're meant to be doing. So again, when it gets to that kind of chronic bit and starts having an impact, that's when it's a concern. Overwhelm is, I think of it as when all of those things are building up. It could be stress, it could be anxiety, and we're getting really drained. Our resilience is really low. We are tired, we're frazzled. We are just finding it really difficult. So much energy to be able to show up at work, to be able to show up in those areas of our life, because we're nearly burnt out. It's on that kind of like upwards towards burnout. And burnout is where you reach that point that your body just can't really take it anymore. Emotionally, physically, you have been using so much energy just to keep going, not having that chance to kind of come down and relax. And you just get to a point where it can be quite dramatic in some ways, where something will have to give, where people might have a bit of a breakdown, or there might be like a physical manifestation of it, but your body just cannot sustain that amount of energy. So they're all, I think, very much related, and people may have a different mix of kind of stress, anxiety, and probably overwhelm or a bit of burnout might be things that people can kind of relate to and have felt a little bit of, particularly at the moment.
And with burnout, has the sort of classification of that changed over recent years? Because again, I'm harking on about my age, but when I was younger, I started work in the city, and then burnout was just that you'd been working long hours for several days and you were absolutely knackered and you just needed a rest. And it wasn't the big psychological thing that it seems to be today. And I find, depending on who I'm speaking to, some people associate burnout with how I initially associated burnout, and some people associate it much more with real I mean, breakdown is a strong word, but, that sort of thing. So do you think it's changed through the generations or different countries, or what do you feel? I mean, you're young, so you may not have known the old version of burnout. Right?
Yeah. And I'm not sure if there is like an official classification of, a burnout. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that it's something that, in the way like generalized anxiety disorder, for example, could be diagnosed with a criteria. I don't think there is the same sort of thing for burnout. Yes. So it is a bit more objective thing. And maybe it is sort of changing pressures and the way that we look at things. And maybe previously saying, oh, I'm really emotionally drained might have been a bit of a no-no.
That's what I wondered. Yeah.
That physical. And I think we are a bit more, still have a way to go, a bit more emotionally literate and, of talking about the psychological pressure as well. And I think there's also like different flavors, if you like, of burnout. So recently I read a really interesting article about parental burnout. So parents who through the pandemic have been homeschooling, they maybe been working at home. And so as a parent, they've used their reserves of energy, their resilience is at the floor and feeling burnout around it. So I think it is just that physically, emotionally, just being drained.
Yes.
In whichever context.
Because I know I work a lot with France, and they use burnout, and they use the word burnout. And I know sometimes different countries, you use a word from another language and you don't necessarily get the real signification. So I wondered whether that was it. But then they always use it in a corporate context. So I also wondered, because I'm not a psychologist, I also wondered whether burnout is a more acceptable word than depression, and that maybe in a corporate context they'd started to use it. But then I started seeing in articles in the States, in the UK, etc., that people are beginning to use the word burnout a lot. So it's obviously transformed. Anyway, I'm wittering. So I know.
I was just going to add, if I could, just super quickly, that and it could be that it's being used for depression or things like that. But I think the thing with burnout, if you're really at that point, it might be because of lots of stresses, say in the corporate space, but it is going to have an impact across your whole life because you as a person are drained. So although it might sort of originate, if you like, the stresses from one context, it's universal, the sort of impact it has on you.
Exactly. Because it could be the smallest thing that triggers it that's got absolutely no relation to what you think it's got, and it impacts everything. So I know a lot of times in corporate, when people are like, oh my God, it's the job, it isn't just the job. Yes, the job may not help, but you might be having a bad relationship with your other half. You might be having, I don't know, physical problems, and the whole lot together. You might be having financial problems, and they all, well, from my experience, they all come together and suddenly, the volcano goes off and you just can't cope anymore. But so there's a huge range of situations that can cause these types of problems, even some of my simple examples. And are they normally interlinked? So do you think it really is several situations that cause it? And so they increase and they increase and they increase, and then it can be an unlinked trigger that just does it. And how can we see the signs? What should we be aware of? I'm asking you these huge questions. Sorry.
Huge question. But I think, if you imagine you're a whole person and you have all these different things going on, but we only have a certain amount of reserves and resilience and energy, really. And if we are not having that opportunity to recharge, we've only got finite resources. So things could be linked, they could be unlinked, but we've only got a certain amount to sort of deal with everything. So if you are at capacity because work is busy and you've got financial stress and your relationship is a bit difficult at the moment, and then you get an unexpected bill or a task you're supposed to do or something that's just unexpected, might not be a big deal. Your hairdressing appointment got cancelled or something. It could just be, I can't deal with that right now because I don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
So I think it doesn't have to all be linked. And then we can kind of, this is another dimension that we add on, the shame and the guilt of like, well, why did I lose it over such a small thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we don't appreciate actually everything else that we're dealing with, and focusing on. And in answering that, I've forgotten the second part of your question.
How can we spot the signs?
How can we spot signs? That's it.
Because I'm sure if we could see that things are beginning, I mean, I had a depression a few years ago, and I had no idea that it was coming, if you know what I mean. I knew I was grumpy. I knew that I was overreacting to things. I knew that I was finding things difficult, but I didn't realize I was really getting close to being not able to manage things. And then it suddenly sort of all came. But I'm sure if I'd been more aware, because I'd never read anything about, mental health or things like that, because again, with my generation, I think it was very taboo. You never talked about anything like that. So if I'd known a few things to look out for, maybe I could have taken steps to, put a bit of distance to calm things down, but I didn't know what to look out for. So for any of these situations, whether it's depression, stress, anxiety, whatever, are there symptoms that we can see, or is there anything that any signs we can?
Yeah. And it's a yes and no. It's a bit of a tricky one, because I think we all have our own unique signs. So I think of them as like red flags. So it's something I've had my own experience with anxiety and depression, and now I'm better, still not great, at spotting my own red flags of kind of going sometimes a couple of weeks in going, oh, I'm doing that thing again, which tells me I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. So for example, relying a lot on like sugary food or like junk food, because I don't have that much energy. I'm feeling depleted. So what does my body want? High energy stuff. And I kind of realized, oh, I've been on this like a couple of weeks thing. That's telling me something about myself. So the awareness that you mentioned is really important, of knowing ourselves and what's out of character. And I think that is the big thing of changes in our behavior. And that might be hard for us to see for ourselves. But it can also be hard to ask a trusted other if we're feeling quite vulnerable, fragile, or fragile, that's a good word, to say, hey, have you noticed a difference in how I'm doing? But sort of checking in. And if you feel like you're a bit on edge, or a bit, you're snapping more at people, for example, you're not sleeping, maybe your food intake has changed, you're not eating as healthily as maybe you would like to, maybe you're consuming more caffeine or alcohol, things like that, so stimulants that, because if you think about burnout, we've been talking about like sort of energy and feeling emotionally and physically drained. So if you are seeking out things that are going to give you energy, but also probably not sleeping as much because you're busy and I just need to get this done before I sleep, or you're being kept awake by concerns. So those are all kind of things that, especially in my personal experience, I've observed. And so, and it's funny, actually, at the moment, I've been making a real effort to go to bed earlier and get more sleep, because for myself, I can see those flags of, I've got lots going on and getting busy, and I've just been eating way too much toast because it's super easy. I'm going, I need to get more sleep, because to get more energy. And it's a small thing that actually can have a really big impact. So if any of those things sort of resonate for anyone, it's maybe worth sort of checking in with yourself. But,
I don't think people realize just how important sleep is, because again, sleep has become, or lack of sleep has become, a badge of honor almost. And the people say, oh, I can only sleep 5 hours a night because I'm so busy. And it's absolutely disastrous. I mean, I am a really strong believer in getting enough sleep. And I know myself, people think I'm very strange. Well, I am very strange, but I tend to get up at about 5 o'clock in the morning, because I've got different time zones. I have strange hours that I work. So therefore, I try to go to bed by 9 o'clock, because I want to have an opportunity to sleep at least 7.5 hours, at least, because otherwise I know I'm going to be a grumpy zombie, right? But other people, they're like, oh, no, it's definitely not. I go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and I get up at 6 o'clock to go to work. And I'm like, you're crazy.
Well, and I have had periods where I've done all-nighters when I was younger, but actually
I did from parties.
But actually when I was depressed, actually part of that for me was my sleep. I was really an insomniac. I would get very little sleep, and actually it was something I did have some medication from the doctors for a while, because and actually as I've put the effort into improving my mental health, which has been a journey in itself, my sleep has improved, and it's still patchy at times, and I am a night owl by sort of that. Often like 10 o'clock I'm like buzzing and like have lots of ideas, and so I really and I find another thing for me is I get into this habit where at the weekends I sleep in to like 10, 11. It is nice, it's like being a bit lazy, bit sort of but really it's necessary because I don't have the energy. So my weekend is a very lazy weekend, which is a bit of that kind of just like having to recover a bit from the week just to get some energy back. And if you're finding that you are sleeping so much at the weekend just to make up for what's happening during the week, then maybe you need to look at sort of rejigging a little bit. So and at the moment it's kind of I'm making this effort because I have some mornings where I have to get up earlier. So trying to and actually today I went to bed at like 9 o'clock last night because I was tired. I was tired. I'd had a bath and I was like, no, I'm going to sleep. I was a bit stressed. So I actually had like a good chunk of time. I didn't sleep for the whole of it, but I was in bed so that I could be up fresh for this.
I know. Sorry, I woke you up.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But actually then I'll probably have a more productive day today. When I first got up, I was thinking, oh, I'm really tired. I might have a nap. But actually now I'm up and with it, and I've had more sleep. But you have a bit of like a rebound where if you've had weeks or months of say having 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, and you should be having maybe 7 to 8. I feel like I'm on the sort of 7 and 8 unless I'm catching up. Is that's a lot to catch up on.
It is. I find if I don't sleep, if I don't get, 8 hours is my ideal time, and I know that I function better on 8 hours, but I can't, if I try and lie in at the weekend and catch up like that, that makes me more depressed. I just feel really, I'm real zombie, and I'm better at trying to go to bed earlier and still get up at a normal time. And as soon as I wake up, I get up, because if I stay in bed or try to go back to sleep, it just doesn't work for me. But everybody's different. So
absolutely.
So what can we do? We've been talking about sort of the negative side of everything. What can we do to manage our well-being better? And what positive actions can we take or can we create so that we can improve everything and just get a more positive outlook?
Well, and well-being is such a broad topic.
I do big questions.
Big question. I talk about mental well-being, which is really broad, and actually on my show I ask people what it means to them and how they look after their own, and there is such a variety of responses. It's really amazing. I think I'm going to write a book about it, but and so it is quite personal to know the things for you that really energize you, when you have those moments of being in flow where you lose that sense of time, the things that you really enjoy. And when we are feeling really stressed, really busy, depressed, those things we don't make time for, we don't have the desire to do them. And so sometimes it's a bit of engineering of kind of going, well, I'll start doing it, I'll try it, see how I feel. But I really love the NHS have a 5 ways to well-being that they have, which are great. And so there is being mindful. So and I kind of group in that awareness of like checking in with yourself of how you're doing. They have about getting active. So lots of people talk about going outside and fresh air and sort of making
definitely
that. Or yoga, because
obviously, and particularly yoga outside, even better.
Yoga outside, perfect. Doing something for someone, whether it's volunteering or being there for people, actually that can give us a real boost. That feel good. Learning something new. And so that doesn't have to be like a course. It could just be something you're interested in, or an experience, that idea of something novel that you can really throw yourself into. And I'm trying to remember what the fifth, the fifth one is. And a fifth one, which I can't remember at the moment. Oh God, it's gone. It might come back to me.
Yeah.
But and these are the things that come up again and again, of being active, of moving our body, of the fresh air.
Yeah.
It actually might be connecting with other people. I think that was the one.
Yeah.
Like, that is a massive thing. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, I'm so busy with all this stuff, I can't possibly pick up the phone and talk to someone. I don't feel like picking up the phone.
Yeah.
It actually can be really beneficial. And with one of my friends, we have this thing where sometimes we sort of say, I just need to rant. I just need to offload. I don't need you to solve it. I just need you to listen.
Yeah.
Because that's really rare, that we have a space where we can just, this is everything that is stressing me out or going wrong at the moment, and be heard, and not someone just try and make it okay.
Yes.
Sometimes people can't make it okay, but it's so powerful to really be heard and listened to.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So, so these are kind of things, if you are in a moment of burnout and kind of crisis, these are the kind of things that if people say, oh, you just need to go outside, that it's not helpful, because it's maybe a slightly different approach if you're at that point. But these are the more like preventative things that you can be sort of thinking in your week. How am I connecting with people? How am I moving? How am I doing new things? How am I being mindful, taking that pause for myself? And I would throw in, doing something you love, even if it's just really small and you're not feeling it at the time. Just go, I'm going to just make myself do this thing, because actually you might find that you kind of warm up to it and enjoy it.
Yes.
Or you might not, but actually it's still probably going to be helpful to have that in. So
yeah. Oh, it sounds great. I love the ranting. I have I do that with my best friend, because we're best friends we practically grew up together, so we've known each other forever. And sometimes I'm like, I need a rant, and she's like, go on then. I'm like, and she's like, okay, do you feel better now? I'm like, yes, thank you. She said, okay, so what are you doing this weekend? She completely ignores what I've said and just goes on. And it's just such a release.
because sometimes, and actually this can be something in a corporate context as well. We can be quick to, we want to make things okay. We want to fix things, because we don't like the uncomfortable feeling of seeing someone else upset.
Yes.
So we want to try and fix it, and we want to try and suggest things.
Yeah.
And often that is not what the person wants. You don't want to hear suggestions. And so, asking someone, if someone is, they come to talk to you, and it could be that you're their manager, for example, or a colleague, saying, before they get started, what do you need from me in this moment? Do you need me just to hear? Do you want me to help you kind of find solutions?
Yeah.
What do you need? And they might say, I just want you to hear. They can come and offload, and off they go.
Yeah.
Or it might be, okay, now let's try and find some solutions together.
Yes.
So, and so, in a corporate setting, or with your partner or child or whoever, what do you need from me in this moment?
Yeah. That's very interesting. And actually that's a perfect point, because I was going to ask you, are there any specifics that we can include in the workplace so that we can better manage the workplace challenges and also the reactions to complex situations? Because often, we bump into something that it makes us feel really uncomfortable, or a person who's not easy to deal with, or, something unexpected. So what can we do, particularly with the challenge, complex sort of issues that we maybe feel a bit too sensitive? What do you advise for that?
I mean, it's a lot to do with communication and culture. And so if you are in a culture that feels
swigging
like,
my tea.
It's fine. If you're in a culture, an office culture that feels like it's not safe to express concerns, or that there's a bit of a blame culture going on, there isn't that open dialogue, it is going to be really difficult. Because if you feel I can't express challenges because there is a really real threat maybe to my safety in this organization if I do so. So I think that is something, culture, it can be hard to change. It can come from the bottom, it can come from the top. It's better sort of if it's this all together. And so maybe it's that thinking about cultural change and how can we create a workplace where we can show up. There's something from the Mental Health Foundation about this whole self at work. So bringing your whole self, and we are complex individuals. We have stuff going on. We have these passions, these interests, and we all have amazing strengths and things that we find difficult. And we make mistakes, and that is just part of human nature. But we don't like to talk about those bits.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then when you make a mistake, you know, you have that real, what does this mean? What's going to happen? And if you don't feel like you can go to someone and say, look, this has happened. How can we sort it out? Or I need help to sort this out, without fearing for our safety in the organization, then we're more likely to feel the stress and try and cover up or try and deal with it. You know, so it's really about trying to create an office culture where people can be themselves. And sometimes that needs to come from the top if you've got a management that is not open to that. And sometimes it takes some really strong, courageous individuals to sort of put their head up first and sort of bring themselves and sort of lead and show we can show up and we can be open. And, you know, so I would say, I don't know, see what you can take from all of that rambling answer. But if you have someone in your workplace who is being that courageous person and is, you know, stepping out, and if you don't feel like you can sort of step forward and say, oh, do you know what, I'm finding this really difficult, then, you know, be an ally to that person who is, to support them, because it can be really difficult to step forward and to show vulnerability, but it can help other people to open up. But it can be really difficult, and hopefully everyone is in a lovely workplace where people can be open and can talk about things. And I think there is a bit idealistic
utopia.
There is, I think, a shift to really talking more about mental health and well-being, because we're really appreciating the massive impact on the bottom line that it can have when people are not at their best, whether they're off because of their mental health, or if it's just affecting their ability you know, to show up, of putting in more support. And you know, I think you can make employee assistance programs available and all that kind of stuff, but if your culture is not supportive of people as whole people, then, you know, it's like trying to put a plaster.
Exactly.
And
do you think with COVID and people working from home, do you think that's changed? Because I know before COVID, so it must have been the January before COVID, I work with quite a lot of clients on a regular basis. So I've probably got between about 35 and 50 active clients at any one time. And I actually did my own sort of little personal analysis of how many had problems. And it worked out that there were more than 20% who were actually going to either a psychologist or a psychiatrist because of workplace problems, which I thought was enormous. And there was 50 or 60% who were actively unhappy and stressed at work, not with stress officially, but, you know, they felt really difficult. Now, that was before COVID, so that everyone was going into work every day and, you know, the normal stuff. And I haven't really asked since COVID, so I don't know whether it's evolved at all for better or for worse. Have you seen any signs or heard anything, or is it too close that people haven't done the sort of research?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there is, and apologies if there is, and I just don't know about it, some analysis about it. But I you know, from what I've sort of heard and observed, sort of more anecdotally, it's a bit of a mix, I think. Same with young people, actually, and children I've worked with. There are some that really thrive working from home and having that space, and some that really need that structure and that environment, or that separation, because they can't be productive at home. And I think there has been more conversation about mental health and more awareness about it, and an appreciation that this is a difficult period of time and needing to support staff. So a byproduct of that is maybe that we are taking things more seriously. But I think there is still a long way to go where, you know, for example, you know, depression we've talked about. And one of the things with depression is that you can get to a point where you just cannot get into the office or do things. My thing is laundry, but I just can't. I cannot, like, the energy to do laundry or like have a shower sometimes. And it's not that I don't want to, it's that I just literally can't. I don't have the energy to do it. And so, to be in that situation of like, I just cannot get into work. A lot of people who maybe not been there, not experienced it, don't appreciate that this person isn't just putting it on, or they're not being lazy, like they literally cannot do it. And because we've built a society, a system where, you work your 5 days a week, and that's it, you're expected to be there. There's, and I don't really know what the answer is for this, but that kind of understanding that sometimes if people are experiencing a mental illness, then that is difficult to do, and how we support them. And I think sometimes the empathy and the understanding can go when it has a business impact. So it's a really difficult thing to manage. But I think we are more aware in the corporate space.
Definitely.
But a long way to go, I think.
I know I've worked from home for a long time. I mean, for years and years, and I love it. But I created my businesses working from home. So I actually converted part of my houses, and I had employees that came to my home, because for me, if I wanted to get up in the middle of the night because I'd had this wonderful idea, or if I wanted to start early or whatever, it was just more convenient. So even though I say I work from home, I mean, now it's just me. But before, when I had employees, actually, I just had offices in my house. So it was slightly different. But I've found with all the people that I've got now, all my clients now, I've got a lot of them. Well, I say a lot. I've probably got 50-50, in fact, that love working from home, because they get so much more done. They don't have public transport. They don't have, traffic jams, whatever. And then I've got the others who are freaking out because they cannot cope with being self-starters or taking the initiative or having ideas, and being alone and not having the contact. And maybe because I've done so many jobs which are sales orientated, or having to go out and meet clients and driving all over the place. So for me, it's a luxury just being at home and relaxing. Whereas other people, they've never had that, always driving, hours and hours and hours every day. So for them, the contact of being in the office, they need it. So I think it's difficult to know who wants what. I think this hybrid way of working is actually a really good idea, because you can get the work focus at home without the interruption, but you can still get the contact of seeing people a couple of days a week. So
and I prefer, when I've been able to, preferred the hybrid model, which is what I do at the moment. But actually, I find that there's something about getting up, getting dressed, going, not that I'm not dressed when I'm working at home, but it's a different type. Like, I can be much more casual at home. I feel like I have to make a bit more of an effort if people are going to see me.
Yes, exactly. Going into the office, decent clothes.
The office. And then I and actually in the office that I'm in, I have my own office. And so in that space, it is almost a bit like a persona. So like, I am here, I am working, and I find I'm more productive there. And at the moment, there's only like a few people in, so it's not a huge distraction. And there are snacks there, which is a good thing and a bad thing, depending on my mood. Whereas at home, it's more, and because I do multiple things, actually, that's nice to have that flexibility if I can decide what mood I'm in. But if I am feeling a bit more overwhelmed, actually being at home, I find I probably am not my most productive, because it's sometimes easier just to sit on the sofa for a bit longer and chill out, or that energy to get up and get going. Whereas if I'm in the office, I'm in that space. So I think it's like a real mix, and I think we probably will see more of this hybrid model happening with people.
I think working from home, it is incredibly important to have an office in your home, or a definite office space that is not in the living room, and it's really blocked off, so that you can open the door and close the door, because mentally, when you're in your office area, you're at work. Whereas if you're sort of sharing it with your living room, I don't think I'd be able to focus nearly as well with that. But I've always completely blocked off an area, or had definite rooms that are offices, because then you can shut the door and you've got professional me and personal me. So
sorry, I think that's one of the challenges over this period, that people who maybe haven't had that set up, don't have the space to it, have been forced to create that space in their lounge, and then you have that bleed over of, it's
I know a lot of my clients, they work in Paris, because in France, Paris, you work in the center, you work in Paris if you want a real job or a good job. There's very much, that type of mentality. And so in Paris, like London, it costs an absolute fortune. So most people will have a flat instead of a house, and probably a small flat. And to actually physically find the space to separate when you're in a small flat, it's just not possible. It really isn't possible. Don't think I'd be able to cope with that. I think it'd drive me crazy. So I do understand them. Anyway, I'm wittering again. So on to the next point. I'm nearly finished, so I'll leave you in peace in a moment. Something that's really interested me, and it's one of my sort of soapbox things, is I really, really believe that holistic success is more important than just career success. So being positive, energized, fulfilled, etc., in all aspects of our life. But I believe for this that we need to look at what I call the 4 Fs, which is fuel, fitness, freedom, and fulfillment. So fuel being what we eat, but also what we fuel our minds with. Then fitness, physical fitness, sleep, etc., etc. Fulfillment, having the freedom of thought, freedom of choice, going into what we like doing. But I want to come back to more the food that we eat. We've already talked about sleep, so we've covered that, and levels of fitness, as well as, environment and all of that. If we don't, as a psychologist, I think what we eat and our level of physical fitness has a huge impact on how our brain works, how well we can do things at work or at home, because if we're not physically fit, our body's not working properly. If we're not eating healthy food, it has a chemical impact on our brain and on our emotions. So as the psychologist, these are my fitness theories. So to what extent do you think healthy eating and fitness have an impact on our mental well-being and our ability to function?
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to add, because psychologist is a funny term. So I'm not a chartered psychologist, but can call myself a psychologist, I think. So just, throw that in there. So there is a lot of really interesting research, but anecdotal stuff as well coming out about the mind-gut connection, the microbiome, and the gut is often talked about as the second brain, and actually it has a massive impact on, things that are happening kind of, chemically and that kind of thing. And I think it's not a coincidence that, when I was in sort of the realization of how long my depression had been going on, I sort of Googled like what helps for depression, and sleep, food, fitness come up, because they just help us to sort of function better. But also it's the physical and the psychological, when you have been moving, and endorphins and all of that, it gives you that feel good, but it also can give you this real sense of competence and achievement, and those kind of things. And particularly if there are other areas of your life where you're not feeling that so much, to have some if you have a regular kind of fitness habit, if you like, to have that regular consistency, which we like, but also that sense of achievement and motivation, and that can be really, fulfilling and enjoyable for people. And so I think it's important to find something that you enjoy, not just, I personally like the gym, but like I have to go to the gym every day just because that's what people say you should do. It can be really fulfilling, but it can make us more I think resilient and energized. It has a massive impact. And food, absolutely. Our brain consumes something like 20% of the calories that we are taking in. So if you are taking in, I'll use myself for an example, when I've been feeling a bit stressed this week, just a lot of toast. Like, a lot of toast. It's just easy. It's just quick. That is not the most nutritionally dense food. It's not particularly varied. So really, I'm feeding my brain just essentially glucose, which lots of people tell you is not the best. And then if I'm wanting to be focused at work, or I'm wanting to come up with creative ideas, well, my brain is not going to be running at capacity, because I'm not giving it what it needs. I'm not giving my body what it needs. I'm, feeling drained, or maybe I'm drinking too much coffee, and so I've got a caffeine headache. And so it's one of those things. And I think sometimes people get a bit, and obviously you're on board for the the holistic way, but sometimes people are like, oh, food, fitness, whatever, like, how does that have an impact? But it really does. And anyone who's like skeptical, I would say just try it. Try. And I think it's easier with food wise to add things than it is to take away. If you're suddenly going, I'm going to have no toast ever, that's quite hard to take away. So what can you add? There's more nutritionally dense, varied foods to kind of add in. And I think also there is something really powerful psychologically when you are taking that time to nurture yourself. You are going, I'm worth eating well, moving my body. These are things I'm doing for myself, and I'm kind of worthy of it. There is, even if you're not kind of consciously aware of it, there is a big thing about, I'm putting this effort into myself that I think can
definitely
as well.
I mean, I'm a nutritionist as well as everything else, so I can give people all the arguments about how it's going to give them more energy, the physical arguments, if you like, but because I've never studied psychology, that's not my field, although I'm very interested in actually learning more. So when it comes to the arguments for why they should do it to help them reduce stress, or to better manage anxiety, or to feel more positive, I don't have the same elements to be able to give them, which obviously you, because you've studied psychology, etc., and you're the specialist in mental health, you can see it from that point of view. And I just think it's so important.
Well, I mean, what I would always say, if anyone is saying, well, does it work, etc., and that's how I felt when I was like, did my little Google what helps depression, and like, fitness, food, sleep, and I was like, so boring, like everyone says it. And so I was like, well, like, what have I got to lose trying it? And I think it's really important to try it for yourself, because actually it's going to be slightly different for everyone. And so if someone's saying, I don't think it's going to work, try it and see. And you might try it for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks and go, actually, no, it doesn't work for me. But probably what you will find is that there will be some benefit. So if anyone is like, I think it's nonsense, well, prove it.
Exactly. Exactly. Very good point. Right. So, okay. So Hannah, any final piece of wisdom or key strategy that we should keep in mind to help us going forward? Nothing like a killer question at the end.
Wow. I mean, there's so much I could say. So what I would say is to not to take time for self-care. And that doesn't just mean a bath, although a bath is lovely, but that taking some time for yourself, we can sometimes be like, I don't have time, it's selfish, it's whatever, but actually it is so important to help you be able to show up in all the areas of your life the way that you want to. It is necessary to nurture yourself and to look after yourself, and sometimes we need to allow ourselves to do that. And just because you can't spend a whole hour hiking a mountain or a dance class or whatever it is that you really enjoy, doesn't mean you can't find like a little bit of that. And even 5 minutes of something that you love is going to give you a boost. And as I sort of said earlier, even if you're sort of not feeling it at the moment, pushing yourself to go, I'm going to try, I'm going to start doing it. I sometimes, if there are things that I'm not really feeling, I put a 5-minute timer on my phone, or do it 5 minutes. I often use it for tidying up, but which I don't love. But even it could be, I don't really feel it, but I'll just do 5 minutes of reading, or 5 minutes or whatever. And you can stop there. We can carry on. But
it gives you a boost. It makes you, it gives you a break as well. And then you feel satisfied that you've done something productive. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Hannah. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for all your advice and all your tips.
Thank you. I've had a great time. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you everyone for listening in and for watching Beyond the Bottom Line. Do look at all the links to Hannah and what she does, because you'll find some very interesting things there. And hopefully we will see you all again next week. Bye.